Thank you for joining me today. We're going to do something probably a little bit unusual, but I feel necessary. We're going to look at the P. Diddy trial and his life from a purely Gnostic perspective. So get your popcorn out, sit down, and let's enjoy the journey together. The Gospel of Fame and Destruction according to PinocchioDiddy. The story of PinocchioDiddy is tragically familiar. All these stories begin with the parents living vicariously through their children, pushing them into the spotlight, thinking it secures a future, often with good intent, but in reality, no parent walks into the entertainment industry blind. Only a fool could believe this realm is about health and light. It's not. It never has been. It's always been about a hedonistic hell dressed as opportunity, and its fuel, of course, is exploitation. If one listens to the stars, especially stars like Alanis Morissette, she sings about working since she was a child, and she casually mentions about being on uppers or downers, or she calls it medicated, and alcohol. Realistically, this isn't theatre, it's testimony. And her case isn't unique. If we look back over the years, let's have a cold, calculating look back. Prince, dead, some kind of drug overdose. Michael Jackson, dead. Similar kind of thing. Whitney Houston, that was self-inflicted, but essentially, again, a drug overdose. Amy Whitehouse, alcohol, drugs, you name it. Mac Miller, same story. It's always the same pattern. Excess, drugs, a dead body, and a doctor blamed. Or some kind of relationship breakdown or some kind of addiction. But nobody ever looks at where the journey to showbiz starts, where it really begins. They're always looking at the aspect of fame. They're always looking at the aspect of fortune. But this is not where the problems begin. It begins precisely in the casting room with the parents who push a child methodically, often from birth, into an industry that can only be described as horrific. The worst point is that the demigods of the industry are standing by with their contracts waiting. And the parents, really, they should think better. But they can't think. Their eyes are full of limelight. Their brains are intoxicated with a cocktail of ignorance, ambition, and fantasy. Most of them don't read the fine print. If they did, they would understand it's not a career. They are taking their child to an altar which will at some stage kill them, or at least extract every ounce of life from them. Most of the parents think it's some kind of door, but it's not. It's a stage, and it's the worst type of stage. It's the beginning of the life of sacrifice, and it's the beginning of really them ceasing to be individuals. They literally turn into products. They have to eat what they're told to eat, live where they're supposed to live, speak to who they're supposed to speak to, drive the car that they're told, date who they told. It's really a very empty life. Every soul entering the system begins as Pinocchio. They crave reality, freedom, and purpose. And this is the tragic thing about Diddy Combs. He was born in the Bronx, like any child from that type of background. I don't think he was asking for justice. He asks for access. And of course, he becomes the marionette. He danced, mimicked, he rose. He became popular, and of course that attracted the Archons, your Clive Davises of this world, your Diegos of this world. And once these guys notice, the media machine notices, all of a sudden Diddy becomes big money, so they make him more real, or at least they make him to look real. And we're back in the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is awful. Famous, rich, untouchable. That's what they believe. But the puppet strings are just converted to gold. So what can we learn from this? Realistically, ladies and gentlemen, I am showing you the greatest show you will ever see. It's Stromboli's theatre from Pinocchio. It's the freak show behind the velvet curtain. Diddy was promoted. He went from Pinocchio to Stromboli with his freaks off, his blackmail, his groomed celebrities, pleasure as power, sex as currency. But the fact is, who built that stage? Who sold the tickets? These are the questions that we are never asked. If you think about it, it's always a ritual gathering. So let's look at the Gnostic viewpoint. The showbiz parties are always the same. Beneath the flicker of strobe and throbbing bass lines, there is a pattern, a coded ritual. On the surface, it's ecstasy, laughing bodies, narcotic fun, glamour spun from gold threads. Once you really see it, then you know these parties, these are sacraments to the archons, and the altar is the souls of the participants. They are rituals of consumption. People think that they go to these parties to rebel, to transcend, but they are being devoured energetically, spiritually. Gnosticism saw this long before the paparazzi ever flashed the camera. The Gnostics understood the world is not broken, it was built this way. Materialism is not a symptom, it is a design. And the worst thing is that ritual is disguised as rebellion. So hence the participants feel wild, free, and they truly believe that they are rebels, breaking the boundaries, ignoring the norms. But they don't realize they're following a script, a deeply choreographed litany. Every act of indulgence is expected. Every random encounter is often planned. Even the scandals that they will become involved in serve as narrative devices. It's quite sickening because rebellion becomes ritual, codified, repeated. It's Saturnalia, not revolution. What about the energy harvesting and the inversion of the sacred? If we look at traditional rituals, the spirit descends or it rises. Energy flows between the human and the divine, but within this realm, the direction is reversed. These events are black mirrors. Instead of communion, there is consumption. Instead of prayer, there is performance. Instead of transformation, fragmentation. The people always suffer the same fate. They are drained. They are never filled. They trade their libido for limelight, for essence, for image. It's all vapid, it's all transparent, and it's all very impermanent. What is the architecture of the archons, the people who actually design this entrapment? In Gnostic thought, the demiurge is not evil per se. He is order without insight. He's machine logic. And what these parties are nothing more than perfectly tuned mechanisms to absorb the will. Each one is just a closed circuit of drugs, sex, fame and status, all spinning in a vortex which draws the soul in. The rituals at the parties are just expressions of the arcanic world. If you like, glittering prisons where the bars are invisible. And worse still, the people thank their jailers. Oh, thank you for making me famous, etc., etc. I think the worst thing with all this is the false light of the demiurge. To the unawakened, these events are drenched in lights, flashbulbs, screens, auras, but it's a false light. It's the neon simulation of gnosis. It's not knowledge, it's not even content, it's not even connection, it's networking. The real light, the one that is within, goes ignored, or it often just gets extinguished. And this is where we get the fragmented self. We can all think of pop stars who have just literally collapsed mentally. Britney Spears comes to mind. They become scattered And they usually enter this state because they think they've found something, some kind of excitement, some kind of affirmation. Some of them even love the lifestyle. Some of them even love the people that they meet there. But really, it's just giving a little more of themselves. What the Gnostics would call the divine spark. But this divine spark is slowly eroded. If it's not eroded, it's eaten by 1,000 bites of the soul. And what replaces the soul? A persona, a brand, a very hollow echo of the real. So if you ever wonder why these parties feel euphoric and empty, this is why. The rituals are all inversion. It's not even a simulation of the sacred, but the gnosis lies in seeing the problem, knowing it, and stepping outside the veil. Because once you've seen the pattern, the spell begins to break. And in that moment, you're free. You don't have to fall for the show. Because you have to remember that the Pinocchio protocol is the greatest show on earth, and it's the longest con. The parties follow a really diabolical Pinocchio script to the letter. The lure is always the same. Come, be free, dance, rebel, indulge. Like Pleasure Island in Pinocchio, it promises transformation from your ordinary life that will be replaced by glamour, edge, seduction, and status. That's the sales pitch. That's the myth. But it still goes billed as the greatest show on earth. And it works. That's why celebrities go to these parties. That's why influencers preen themselves and say how wonderful these parties are. And even your average dreamer would like to say, oh, I'd like to go to one of these amazing parties. But there's a problem. You're not attending a party. You're walking into the stage play that's designed for you and also against you. Because everything at these parties, and I mean everything, is recorded. And really, we should look at what we understand as surveillance. It's not surveillance, it's a ritual weapon. People think that covert surveillance is some cheap backroom setup, some amateur trick pulled off by some paparazzi with long lenses. To think like that is incredibly naive. In reality, we are talking high-level logistics. Audios embedded in furniture, cameras hidden behind decorative panels, signal routing through decoy routers. This is not run by your friendly neighborhood rapper or your misbehaving movie star. This is deep. This is technology that requires specialization. And while you're thinking about what type of specialization is needed, ask yourself, who has the capability to run a covert psychological operation in real time? Who has the time to map social networks, to extract emotional data, to blackmail with precision? I promise you, it's not the guy with the hit single. It's the ones behind the curtains, the ones with no stage presence, but every spotlight. So if we're going to recap, it's always the false promise of Pleasureland. In the story of Pinocchio, the children who seek pleasure without responsibility transform into donkeys, beasts of burden. Their laughter turns into braying, their minds degrade. It's no accident that the blueprint of these parties, the main thing that is offered is pleasure, either pleasure through drugs, sex, or through some kind of vicarious contact or actual contact. But the cost is transformation. It's not a good transformation. It's you turn from being sovereign into a slave. You're a slave to the image. You're a slave to the memory of what has just happened. You're a slave to the idea that if you can come back to the party, you'll feel whole again. The irony, the ones pulling the strings know the script. If we look at this from the Pinocchio angle, they play the blue fairy. They pretend to give you a wish, knowing all along they've led you into the meat grinder of control. We've seen the party, but what awaits after the party is over? It's the belly of the beast. It's the Leviathan that awaits. Because all the parties come to an end. They're designed to. And if we understand Pinocchio, his end isn't freedom, it's the Leviathan. The great whale, the devourer, the underworld. That's the real story, and that's where it happens. And the showbiz parties, and the showbiz partygoers, the chosen ones, the stars, they are all swallowed by the Leviathan. The way they vanish is always the same. Breakdown, a scandal, an arrest. And then, of course, the script changes. They emerge, pale-faced, wide-eyed, changed, and it's always the same performance. They've found Jesus, they've rejected their past, they're born again, and we the public are expected to clap. You're expected to believe in this transformation, this redemption, but it's all part of the act. It's another ritual. So we've seen it. What does it mean? They present the Leviathan as the reformer and the recycler. It's not like that. The whale just devours. It doesn't reform. It doesn't give you back your spirituality. It systematically destroys or kills. It makes no difference. The celebrities always say they've been reprocessed. In that reprocessing, their public persona is stripped, and after it's stripped, they're redressed in new garments. It's usually humility, regret, and rebirth. But what people forget is, even this phrase is scripted. The born-again pop star, the clean-cut rapper, the Hollywood exile who returns with a podcast and a Bible. Once again, these are roles no different to the ones they played on screen. The system always offers them a deal. Lose the soul, keep the spotlight. We'll tell you what to do. Confess what we've scripted for you to confess. Repent publicly. And maybe, just maybe, we'll let you back in. It's literally the theatre of forgiveness. We all remember Colonel Oliver North, numerous rappers, rock stars, models. They all play the same act. Forgive me, I've changed, I now see the light. This is only said when the power is gone and the money is gone. But what you're looking at is a ghost in designer clothes, parroting the redemption story. They rarely get their kingdom back. Their reward is a cubicle inside the Leviathan. And the public, it's quite sad, it still believes this charade. They cheer, they forgive, they buy the memoir, they stream the album Comeback, they watch the new film, but there's always one final trick left, which is the most chilling. Even if they live and they're in prison, they're still following the script. All these parties and fame manipulation, it's about programming, narrative control. The Leviathan doesn't just swallow bodies, it swallows wills. So when you see these parties, these happenings and these collapse of celebrities, if you've ever felt a strange deja vu when you're watching the rise, fall and redemption of the famous, it's because you're not watching life, you're watching theatre, a ritual, the Gnostic nightmare wrapped up in neon and gospel. There are very few celebrities who escape this trap. The ones who do allegedly silence us by telling us, no, don't do this. But they don't get along with it for long. They usually disappear, or they usually die of a heart attack or something. The ones who survive this treatment, they're usually shattered and ghosts of themselves. But for those of you out there who see it with eyes to pierce the veil, there is a freedom in knowing, because the greatest heresy in this world is not rebellion, it is awareness. Remember, the entertainment industry doesn't break its children, it designs them to shatter. Thank you for listening, and namaste.